Welcome to another episode of Blonde in the Kitchen. Today, my mom will be making stuffed cabbage. Let's start by making the filling. You will need 2 pounds of chuck roast. It's best to dry brine the beef before grinding. For 2 pounds of meat, we use 2 tablespoons of salt, and exact measurements for this whole recipe will be at the end of the video on a recipe card. Dry brining will add flavor and help tenderize the meat before grinding. Once all the salt is mixed in, let it sit for 1 to 2 hours in your fridge, covered before washing. Here we have the washed meat pieces and yellow onion. Add a couple of handfuls of beef to the grinder and then a handful or two of onions until all of this has gone through the grinder. The onions have enzymes that will break down the proteins in the meat, which will in turn tenderize the beef even more and add more flavor. Now that the onions and beef have been grinded up, we're going to add our spices. Into the meat, we're adding salt, garlic powder, black pepper, and sweet paprika. Our last ingredient for the filling is arborio rice. The reason why we like to use arborio rice is because it's a short grain rice that comes out perfectly cooked in stuffed cabbage and in dishes like stuffed peppers. Once the rice is mixed in completely, you can set this in your fridge while you prepare the cabbage. Here we have a medium-sized head of cabbage. The goal is to remove the core. Once it's been removed, we're going to add the cabbage to a pot and fill it a third of the way up with water. Boil the cabbage over a medium-low heat for 20 minutes. And because the core has been removed, this will allow the water to move up through the inner leaves, which will help by loosening them up for when we have to take them off one by one. And here we have our cooked cabbage ready to be peeled. This step takes a bit of patience. Peel each leaf off gently. In addition to the stuffed cabbage, you'll want extra leaves for the bottom and top of your pot. You'll also notice that the more leaves you peel off, the more you might need to cut around the rim of the core. This will help with loosening up more of the leaves the closer you get to the middle of the cabbage. Alright, so once you're done peeling off all of the leaves, all we have left to do to the cabbage before filling it is trimming the rib of the cabbage leaf. This makes it easier to roll the stuffed cabbage. Once trimmed, you have the option to also cut off some of the bottom of the leaf so that it makes it easier to roll the stuffed cabbage. Once your leaves are all prepped, it's time to fill them. And to do that, take about 2 to 3 tablespoons of meat and form it into a rounded off log shape. Place it in the center of the leaf, roll upwards, and then fold in the sides before rolling completely. And you'll want to leave the open side on the bottom so that it doesn't open up. And there you have our first stuffed cabbage, and here's a whole plate full of them ready to go into the pot. Before we do that, we're going to make our tomato base. So for that, we're going to be using these beautiful diced tomatoes from a can. Drain them and only use the diced tomatoes. We're adding this to olive oil and tomato paste. Go ahead and cook this down on medium heat before adding in your garlic. The last thing you want to do is let this burn, but once you add in the garlic, let it cook for at least 2 to 3 minutes on medium-low heat. Look at this sizzle. This is exactly what you want before you add in your beef broth. So here we've added just a cup of the beef broth before we add in the rest. Let this cook down a little bit more, and we're going to add our spices. So we're adding sweet paprika, salt, sugar, and black pepper before adding in our soup powder and giving this a stir. After everything's combined, we're going to add in the rest of the broth. Let this boil for about 2 to 3 minutes before assembling our pot. You might be wondering why we added sugar, and that's because this base is full of a lot of tomato. It has diced tomato, it has tomato paste, and when you have that much tomato, adding sugar cuts the acidity and it makes for a really nice flavor. Our base is ready and it's time to assemble our pot. So in a clean pot, go ahead and add some olive oil or any oil of your choice. We're going to create a bed for the stuffed cabbage. So here you can take half of the extra leaves you have and put them on the bottom of the pot, and then the other half that you have we will place over the stuffed cabbage on the top. Now it's time to add in the stuffed cabbage. Make sure that they're placed nice and snug so that none of them roll open. In our house, whenever we make these, or whenever my grandma makes these, they almost always add a few yellow potatoes, and that's because the potatoes soak up all of that beefy tomato base. So if you like potatoes, or if you have someone in your house that doesn't particularly like to eat ground beef, I recommend you put them in your pot. It'll be a tasty bonus side dish. Now, once all of the tomato base is in the pot, go ahead and cover these with some more cabbage. And I promise you, this is not a waste because this is really tasty to eat on its own as well as the stuffed cabbage itself. We cooked this on our stove for 40 to 50 minutes on medium heat. If you're going to cook these in your oven, set your oven to 375 degrees and bake for the same amount of time. Now, once you cover the pot, there's nothing else for you to do except for wait. No peeking, no stirring. And here is our completely cooked pot of stuffed cabbage. This is one of those feel-good, hearty dishes. It's perfect for a cold night in. It's great to make when you have a lot of people coming over. And we couldn't help ourselves. My mom, my sister, and I, we all sat down and had a little taste test with the ones that she's taking out right now because the house smelled so good. And of course, we're going to show you what they look like on the inside. But before we do, I want to thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed. Leave a comment down below of your thoughts. And please share with us how you like to enjoy your stuffed cabbage. As promised, my mom is going to open one of these so that you can see what it looks like from the inside.